to Power Nickel's live investment summit today, hosted by Six. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for today, Power Nickel's CEO, President, and Director, Terry Lynch. Terry's going to walk us through a company presentation, and after we'll be taking questions live. Remember that you can submit your questions using the Q&A panel found on the right-hand side of your screen at any point during today's presentation. And as always, this event is being recorded and will be available to watch afterwards on Six.com in the coming days. Without further ado, Terry, I'm going to kick things over to you to get us started.
Cam, thanks so much for having us here. Always appreciate getting an opportunity to speak to our interested shareholders and interested parties that are looking at Power Nickel at this point in time. It's you couldn't be looking at Power Nickel at a better time in my perspective. I think this thing's about to really take off, and I think that'll be awesome. So without further ado, let's walk you through a bit of an update here and how we're positioning the company now and going forward. So we like to say we're Canada's newest battery metal company. Obviously, we historically were Chilean metals, but now we're Power Nickel, and we'll walk you through why we made that change. The standard disclaimers, it's always important to do your own due diligence on these things. We're not going to be misrepresenting anything. We're going to tell you what we believe to be true, but it's always practical consideration to do that for yourself. Why invest now? We'll touch on some sort of broad themes here, and then we'll sort of cover it in more detail in the presentation. First and foremost, there's a commodity bull market going on, and particularly in the battery metal sector. So anything to do with lithium, cobalt, copper, nickel, palladium, all that is going to be doing very well for the next several years. We're lucky in that we were able to acquire the high-grade nickel, copper, cobalt project called Nisk. So it's got them all. And we'll get into some deep detail on that. Best of all, as an investor, we're trading at a deep discount to our comparable peers. It's good in that we're cheap, and that should make you want to buy the stock if you don't have it, and buy more if you already have it. And I think probably positively you'll see why it's not going to stay that way. And I think that's more relevant because anybody who owns the stock wants to know why is it going to go up, and I think we're going to give you some real good reasons why we think that's going to happen. We're rebranding as Power Nickel. Obviously, historically as Chilean metals, being a major nickel player just doesn't make sense. Chile's not known for nickel, so it made sense for us to basically package that into a spin-off, which is going to become a bonus for you. We had hoped to do it last year. It was a little more complicated, and then there became some capital considerations to doing it this year, so that's why it's happening this year instead of last, but it'll be a major bonus and a very big plus for you. And then finally, we're going to talk about our drilling that we did at Nisk in Q4. November, December, it just finished really. And, we're pending, the assays. In fact, I'd hope we'd be speaking about the assays today. And perhaps if we did this on Friday, we'd be speaking about the assays. It's that close, folks. It's they're really in the chute here now. So, but I won't be able to speak in detail about the assays, but we'll give some guidance that we've already given about that, and that'll be relevant. And then, the other point would be, as soon as the assays are in, we'll update our 43-101. And I would say from an investing perspective in junior mining, what you want to do is you want to be investing when the company's drilling or about to report drilling results or about to report a updated 43-101. So we're right in that zone right now, so that's a great plus. We mentioned why we think now is a good time to be looking at the commodity sector. This is a neat chart. It basically overlays the TSX.V, which is a proxy for metals and mining, over the S&P. And as you can look back in the timeline, the last bull market in commodities is probably 2006 or so, and there it got as high as almost 3, and now it's about 0.25. So almost like a factor of order of magnitude shift is expected to happen. So, I mean, that is likely to be a good thing for almost everyone in the sector. And that's as an investor, I like to come in when the rising tide is raising all boats. The other thing that could help us is I started a company called a advocacy program called Save Canadian Mining. And I started, and I had some very good partners along the way with people like Eric Sprott and Sean Rusin and Keith Neumeier and others. We've had a lot of people supporting this across the sector. And the reason why they came on to support was the chart on the lower left. So on the lower left, you see basically a TSX-V metals and mining index overlaid with basically a commodity price index split between the precious metals and the industrial metals. Historically, the red line, which is the TSX-V metals and mining index, would be above the blue line, which is the commodity index, sort of trading at or above, which makes sense. It's a commodity business. We should trade in line with the commodities. But since the tick test was taken out and that sort of allowed predatory short selling to come in a big way, and this has created this major discrepancy. And so now, metals and mining index is down at like 35%. Should be at around 100%. So it almost has to triple to get back to normal. So that has been noticed. We've pounded the table with the Ontario Securities Commission and the Ontario government, and at the various they've done sort of like a Royal Commission on Ontario on this, and there's some very strong possibilities that this spring there'll be some new legislation brought forward in two particular areas. We're hopeful. In one, they are looking to basically prohibit you from short selling or covering a short sale in a private placement. That happens all the time in our market. The second thing would be right now the transaction settlement period. If you buy a stock, you basically have to settle in 2 days. But there's in Canada a bonus 10 days, which is really crazy. And what happens for these predatory short guys? They basically are offshore hedge funds. They don't even declare a short. They don't cover, and then on the 9th day, they flip it to the next numbered company, and they just keep on going. That's what happens as you see stock charts that impact this, like you see in this lower left. And so the rule change that could fix that is they're advocating for a T+2+4 settlement. So in other words, you're supposed to settle in 2 days still, but you can go a maximum 4 days beyond that. And at the end of the 4th day, you'll either deliver the stock that you're supposed to, you'll be have to have a contract to borrow, so not a think I can borrow, but an actual contract, or you'll be bought in. And so that would go a long ways to stopping this problem and helping to shrink that gap, and that would be a good thing for all stocks. So that's sort of the macro picture. Let's get into the micro and why we're excited about our micro picture at Power Nickel. So in about, 15 months ago, we made a deal to acquire Nisk. Nisk was an advanced stage nickel sulfate project that was located in effectively just south of James Bay in Quebec. And it was owned by Critical Elements, a very fine lithium company, a company that I'm an investor in, and I had a good relationship with management there. And I didn't even know it existed on their books really until another investor of ours sort of said, "Hey, Terry, I think you should buy this." And I looked at it and ultimately had to agree with them. I mean, it was a very exciting project in a great area. Nickel's a very hot commodity, and it's rare to get a project that's 30% of the way to being a mine, and you can acquire it. So we made the acquisition basically, and we got this project, which is effectively a little over 3 million tons of what is, the math is about 2% nickel EQ. So it's a little bit greater than 1% nickel, but it's got a big chunk of copper too, about 0.55, copper about 0.07, 0.08 cobalt, and about 1.1 grams of palladium. So it's a very multi-metallic mix, and that's great from an economic perspective. But the 2% nickel EQ is a very tasty number, very high grade. So we're able to acquire that. Before we made the acquisitions, one of the things we did just to sort of verify that this was a good move for us was we looked at companies like Talon Metals, which is, if you were to say, Terry, what do you want to be when you grow up? As a company, I'd say I'd like to be Talon Metals because they've got like a 10 million ton PEA, a 2% nickel EQ, very similar grades to ours, and they're trading around 500 million in value, and we're trading around 15, 14. So, when I say we're undervalued, I mean, we're seriously undervalued. But now that we're going to start to show people that this is not a historic resource, that we can make it a current resource and that we can expand this, things are going to change. But when we looked at the comparable of Power Nickel versus ourselves and the Palladium One, another nickel sulfate project, basically one of the things we did was we said, hey, how much drilling did they do to make this discovery, and what is the in situ value of the material worth? So we did this last March. Numbers may change slightly, but the order of magnitude wouldn't probably change much. So Talon Nichols was discovering material at the rate of 41,000, 42,000 per meter. Palladium 1 about 70,000, and we're about 94. So what it means relatively prospectively, we were very highly prospective. So that really sort of cemented the reason for us to go ahead with the acquisition, and we did. So, a little backdrop on why nickel is so hot and likely to get a lot hotter. So nickel is generally, there's two major drivers to the nickel market. Nickel, number one driver is urbanization. So as people, get more urbanized and have pots and pans and stoves and kitchens and cars, and all those things use stainless steel. And nickel is a big piece of stainless steel, and that's what drives the overall nickel market in a big way. That's more forecastable. It's almost like you can predict that, and it's been growing steadily as, of course, China, India, Pakistan, and South America and Africa are getting more urbanized. Obviously, this has been bullish for stainless and bullish for nickel. The other big driver, though, is electrification. So, everyone's, the whole ESG movement is all about moving away from fossil fuels, moving towards a more electric society. So that is very positive for nickel. Show you here in the car battery alone, in 2016 it was about 39%. 2025 expected to be 58%. And the reason why that is pretty simple. Nickel is by pound the cheapest price of any material in a battery. So if you can, from a chemistry perspective, maintain charges and do what you need to do on the charge side of things and reduce lithium, reduce cobalt, reduce manganese as substitute for nickel, well, then you're making your batteries cheaper, and that's just better economics for car manufacturers. So that's what's happening. That's why nickel's been so strong. The other thing that's interesting on the nickel side of things is that not all nickel is created equal. So nickel laterites, which are the biggest deposits in the world on nickel, and recycled nickel, which is quite big as well, generally are not pure enough without a lot of expensive additional processing to be used for battery metals, for battery technologies. So generally speaking, the nickel sulfates are about 25% of the market, and they're in high demand for the battery manufacturers. So that's why these nickel sulfate projects are very attractive. And even though we're at early stages, we have people that are in the nickel industry very interested in power nickel. Where are we located? We're located in a really great area. It's called Northern Quebec, just south of James Bay. We're literally just off a major 4-lane highway, right across from a major Hydro-Quebec substation. That's great for a number of reasons. One, obviously, they're with a major Hydro-Quebec substation there and lots of workers, it's maintained 24/7, 365. And the second is that ultimately, as we look to develop this project or sell it to somebody that will develop it, it will make it very easy to make this one of the greenest nickel projects in the history of the world. So all powered by green energy. So that's a very important selling feature, I think, to our project. The local community is becoming more and more dependent on mine development. We've got just down the road, the Nemaska lithium mine is being commissioned and being put in production. So that's just about to sort of turn. Just up the road here is where Critical Elements, who we acquired the Nisk deposit from, they've just received their federal government approval, just waiting on the provincial approval, and then that'll become, they'll start building there. And then Galaxy is just over here, another lithium mine. So this has become sort of lithium central and battery central, obviously with the nickel project being part of it. So, major airport here, there's railway over here to the left, and the port, obviously, in Montreal, just south. So, it's a great area to develop. And the other benefit about Northern Quebec is it qualifies for super flow through. So you can get a 150% in tax deduction by investing in mining in this area. So we've used that to our advantage. When we did our last financing, it was interesting, that stock, I think, was 17 cents today. And we raised money in last May at 25 cents and 40 cents. So the flow through was 60% premium to what we issued stock at. So that's one of the pluses. That'll mean less dilution in the future. But obviously for investors right now, they're buying at a discount to that, and obviously what a time to be buying. This is the what gave us a lot of confidence in the project was we could see that it was open at depth and along strike. So this little black dot here represents the resource area, and yet even though we've had nickel shows up and down this curve, this is where the resource was, and so that was quite encouraging. What we did was we went out and we found a really great 3D modeling company called 3DGO. They've done a bunch of projects in the area, so they have some domain expertise, literally in the terrain that we're working in. And we have asked them to model our deposit, gave them all the data, and they're actually going to do the updated 43-101 for us. So that's good because that means we'll very quickly, once we give them the assays over the next couple of weeks, we can expect to get our updated 43-101 out very quickly. So they put together an interesting exploration program for us, generally focused on Nisk main. Our objective in this exploration program wasn't so much as to expand the resource as to prove that the historical resource was accurate, and yes, to show there's growth. So that was the number one and two objectives, and I believe we're going to show with these assays and the updated 43-101 that we indeed did achieve that. You can look at these intercepts, pretty exciting. Basically, you're seeing stuff like 20 meters of 1.35% nickel, 18 meters of 1.25% nickel, 5 meters of 2% nickel. I mean, these are exciting intercepts. And what's interesting is that while we obviously would have liked to have the assays to discuss with you today, and that's why we've scheduled another conference for, I think, in a week's time that we'll hope to update you on at that point. What we can say and what we have said, so it's not telling tales of the school, is we have said that we were targeting the black peridot rock, which carries the nickel grade. And basically, this rock was, I think we did 8 holes. One hit a fault, and when we stopped drilling, the other 7 hit the black peridot rock. And these were step outs 25, 50 meters from these known intercepts. So we're not expecting, major differences in grade. We're expecting something similar. And widths of the intersections were the same or greater than what we are posting here. So bottom line, we're expecting bullish results on our assays, and we'll see them shortly. The drill holes, that just sort of shows you what the overall drill program was and the actual execution of it. And again, what this program will end up showing, we believe, is that these pods, if you look at it from a topographical viewpoint, Nisk main is where we're focused on now, and that's where the resource is. We feel we could probably get to 8 million tons, 10 million tons there, 8 for sure, possibly 10. At 10, in our mind, you're definitely a commercial mine to be. The interesting thing with these nickel sulfate deposits worldwide is they typically come in multiple pods. That's sort of how Mother Earth divvies it up. It's not usually one pod, there's usually multiple ones. And so we can see with Nisk West already having nickel intercepts that there's very likely some interesting nickel to be had down there. And then there's 2 other wildcat targets that we did not explore at this point. Obviously, just with economics and trying to justify the transition from Chilean metals to power nickel, we need to spend our money sort of verifying what we had. And then that, I think, will lead to a revaluation of the stock. And that will allow us to have a more aggressive exploration budget, which we would get into in the second half of this year. The other point I would make just on the reasons why we love Nisk, the optionality of this thing is really incredible. I mean, basically you got this one Nisk main, which probably is going to be big enough to make it commercial, we think. But, there's the potential for multiple pods. So, these nickel sulfate, high-grade nickel sulfate deposits tend to be sort of 10 to 50 million tons. You're looking at, $250 rock. It's very valuable rock per ton. So it's pretty exciting. The other thing that happens is mostly this was done at fairly shallow depth. So most of the existing resource, historic resource, was within 100 meters of surface. So that is excellent because that means you're open pittable, probable to start this thing off. That has certain cost benefits for sure. The other thing that happens is you got one level of this nickel river running through it and this black periodite rock. It's possible, and historically around the world, it happens like this, where you can get stacked systems, so you have more than one level. The other thing that happens, again, not all the time, but does happen, and again, this is a free option that we get, is sometimes these deposits exist as halos above the VMS, much bigger deposit. So again, I'm not promising that, but the neat thing is you got that upside, and I mean, Nisk Main becoming a mine would be a huge win for us, but we've got upside beyond that, which is really fantastic. So in terms of how we're delivering that, we're basically, the first thing we did was to, 3D model it. It had never been 3D modeled before. So that allowed us to sort of get a really good look at how we might sort of bring this thing forward. The first wave of drilling was done to be low risk step out so that we could sort of, get rid of this historical, resource and become a full bona fide 43-101. And show that there's expansion potential within that, which we think we're going to be able to do. So we drilled about 3,000 meters less, I think, actually in the final analysis, because some of the drilling we stopped because of the fault and such stuff. The technical report probably is going to be ready end of Q1, early Q2. I would say early Q2 is probably the best way to sort of look at it. And then our feeling is we'll get the assays out. We think in the next week. I mean, they're in process now, and then there might be a couple stages of the assays, and then that'll enable our engineering firm to update and put out the new 43-101 in we think early Q2. Subsequent to that, we would expect there to be somewhere between now and then there's going to be, I think, a revaluation of the company. Just because it's so dramatically undervalued relative to our peers, and that would enable us to raise some additional capital. Probably we'll have that come in through our warrant exercises, and to expand a new drill program on Nisk after breakup in early Q2. So that's Nisk. Let's talk about the other half of Power Nickel. It's interesting. We were Chilean metals before, and we were like a copper gold company, and we had some pretty advanced projects. Now it doesn't make sense to have your major project being a nickel project in a Chilean metals, because the connotation, the marketing, the branding is just not right. So that's why we changed the name, and that's why we're spinning out our copper gold assets into a new co called Consolidated Gold and Copper. This will be subject to shareholder approval, of course, but generally speaking, there'll be, for every 25 shares of Power Nickel, you'll get one share of the new co, and we'll keep the balance inside Power Nickel, and that's just to maintain discipline so that you get fair valuation for the spin co. And we'd expect we planned to do it last year, but the paid up capital calculations took a lot of time, and some of the data we had to get from microfiches that were very difficult to find. Anyway, long story short, became more economic to do it this year, and given the gold market wasn't rocking at the time, we thought we're not really losing anything. Now the gold market looks like it's ready to sort of maybe catch fire, so it could be great timing for us. So we think you'll probably get this approved at the annual meeting in Q2, and look to finalize the deal in Q3 with the plan of arrangement. So what will go in is basically our projects in BC and in Chile. So in BC, we have a really interesting project called Golden Ivan. It's in the heart of the Golden Triangle. Golden Triangle is probably one of the more prolific geological areas in Canada. Something like 130 million ounces of gold, 800 million ounces of silver, and 40 billion pounds of copper have been discovered there. So it's multiple mines are in production and more coming. So we're literally at the town of Stewart. We're the mountain that overlooks the town of Stewart. So what I like about that is it means it's much more likely to be able to be commercially developable. We're this little yellow area in here, and we're between two companies called Scotty Resources in the red, Strike Point here in the blue, and this is Ascot. So when we acquired this from a colleague of mine, a lawyer in BC, who is going to become a board member of the new spinco called Hugh Madden. He basically he really liked our company and our assets and wanted a big stake in it, and this is how we got it, by trading this land package in for it. Before we had acquired it, Ascot hadn't been going for mines, so now this is becoming a mine. So that's always enhances value. So it's sort of like people say, "Well, Terry, what is that worth?" And I say, I don't honestly know, but I know it's worth a lot more than we're worth right now. So this was a report we just pushed out maybe a week or 10 days ago. This was a sort of a consolidation of our summer work program. So we had hoped to get in drilling, but in the Golden Triangle, it usually takes a year or so to get permits. So we'll be fine for next summer. But right now we consolidated this information, and then we made a couple of new discoveries of some pretty serious gold samplings. We basically had two samples that were greater than basically a half ounce of gold per ton. That's amazing. So that's really trophy material. So very exciting. So this project's never been drilled. So you get that type of surface work. Over here where my cursor is called Silverado. That's the Strike Point's probably their highest grade results. That's right on our border. So it's pretty encouraging. We're pretty bullish about this area. I think it could be a very exciting program to drill on this summer. So that'll be the sort of the mainliner in the consolidation gold and copper. As I mentioned, what would that be worth? We don't know. I mean, Strike Point's worth about 25 million now. Scotty about 35. That changes day to day because it goes up by a couple of pennies, and this is 40. I mean, they were both 40 million just a couple months ago and higher. So all these things have been reduced, but the markets are starting to turn a bit now. So we're not sure what the valuation will be, but in our mind, it could easily be in this range. So when I say to people that you're getting something for free in Power Nickel right now, either you're getting the gold and copper resources for free, or you're getting the nickel asset for free. Something's wonky here, but shortly, I think as we get these assays out and the updated 43-101 and formalize the spin-out plan, these things all start to shape up. Chile, we've obviously historically been a Chilean focused company. We've got some great assets in Chile. These are all Zulema, Palo Negro, TDO, several thousand hectare projects. The only thing that we're a little bit and they're drill ready. I mean, we spent some millions of dollars over the years getting them there, and we've had some interesting exploration work done. We've had some. I would say we hit some posts. We never buried the puck in the net. Never had the one hole that says, "Aha, we've got something," but we've been close. So these are big projects and probably need more exploration dollars. The challenge right now is for Chile is that there's a constitutional debate going on in the country. They're going to resolve it in August, and that will probably lead to some new rules. We don't think it'll be manifestly different for exploration, but it doesn't make sense for us to take any more of a risk capital and put it in Chile other than maintaining it. And we're in farm-out discussions with some majors on some stuff, and obviously we could do that. But we're just given our such great projects in Canada to work on. We're not putting exploration dollars in Chile at the moment, but we expect that'll change come August. The only other asset that, just to remind you, that we have in the company that is a royalty. We have a 3% royalty on a project we sold to Teck for $3 million. At the time when we sold it, we thought they would be using it for QB1. QB1 was their first project that Teck had. And then, obviously, with the difficult pathway over the last number of years for junior mining, Teck basically chose to mothball QB1 and use its components in QB2 to make better economics there. And so that sort of derailed our immediate production plans. And probably what happens on this asset is that ultimately will become another mine. This has got 200 million tons of basically ore grade copper right now, like a 0.4 equivalent copper EQ. But the supergene has not been discovered there yet. So this is big boy country. So you need major exploration dollars to make that work, and we expect Teck will make that happen, possibly in partnership with Xstrata, who they have discussions on about QB3 as a possible next mine. So this will become a major asset for us. It's not there now. People have tried to steal it from us for $1 million or so, and we're just not going to sell it for anything close to that. So we'll keep it, and at some point that'll be a major win for us. The team, basically, myself, obviously, I've been around the horn a bit and doing, a lot of startup activity. Obviously, did Save Canadian Mining. I've got, fairly good, connections in the space and in the financial community. Greg McKenzie was ex-MD at Haywood, bright guy, runs a silver mining company. Peter Kent is our chairman, very distinguished retired lawyer, but brings that mindset to the table that's so critical. Les is a very successful businessman from Nova Scotia, and Jimena is running our Chilean operation. So we're quite lean, and we've tried to keep our money, put it in the ground, because that's the only way you create value in this space. Total shares issued about 84 million and change, about fully diluted about 111 million, about 20 million or so warrants, about 2/3 of those are at 15 cents. And the balance at 45. We think our 52-week high is 55 cents. We think with this news, there should be every reason for it to go through that, and that will basically compel the warrants to come in, and that'll sort of boost the treasury. We have around $1 million or so in the bank right now, and we're pretty much done our winter work program. Let's talk about, why invest now. So we think we did some major acquisitions which reshaped and revalued and repositioned Power Nickel. We raised our money, so we're not raising money at these levels. The Nisk acquisition had great potential for expansion, and we're going to show it in the near term with the results of the assays and the updated 43-101. That sector, battery metals, is extremely hot. Nickel, copper, cobalt, and PGE, and Nisk has them all. I think we've shown you that the spin-off potential has some amazing possibilities, especially in a hotter gold market. This leadership team was able to pull that off because we've got deep connections in the industry, and we're able to make things happen. From an investing time perspective, you can't get a better time to invest in a company than when it's about to publish its results and update its 43-101. So that's when you want to get into these deals, especially if we're trading at a low valuation relative to peers, which we are, and which is understandable, because up until now we really haven't done a ton of IR, because we needed to have the proof that we were, that this was actually a real deal, and that proof is coming. So we think this will be the reason why we can expect it to change from this point on. And then finally, future financings and dilutions. The fact that we're in jurisdictions, both BC and Quebec, where we have 150% tax deduction, that'll reduce our cost of dilution going forward. So it's shaping up to be pretty exciting time to be a Power Nickel shareholder. So that's the, as you would call, the elevator pitch and the update. We will hope to update you in the next week or 10 days on the actual assays, but pretty exciting times, and happy to answer some questions. I see there's some questions coming in, Cam, so I'll turn it back over to you, and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terry. Indeed, we have a number of questions, so we're going to want to launch right into it. But just before we do so, I'd like to remind, of course, everyone in attendance that if you'd like to participate in the Q&A, time allowing, ask the questions using the Q&A tab found on the right-hand side of your screen. Well, let's get started. So the first question comes from Dennis. What's the situation with the unpaid taxes in Chile? Can we or should we be retaining the properties?
So, I mean, great question. It always looks bad on our balance sheet with these unpaid taxes, but taxes in Chile are quite different than taxes in Canada. So we can walk at any time and obligation is gone. So most of those unpaid taxes are projects that we would be walking from in any event, but there's no incentive for us to walk right now. So, and sometimes you get a freebie. Somebody calls and says, "Hey, we want to acquire this," and there you have it. So, but on our core stuff, if our tax burden is X, probably 15% of it is the real burden. And they you typically have an auction that happens in Chile, and you have about a 4 to 6 month notice period before you have to sort of step up and pay the taxes. So that hasn't happened yet. So we're in a position where we're not going to spend any money on that certainly until the the constitutional issues are sort of handled. And I think the government knows that, and that's why there's no auctions happening right now. So so generally speaking, the balance sheet taxes in Chile are stuff we could walk from without any liability at all, and we would do so if we needed to. And but right now it makes sense to retain them because it doesn't cost us anything, and it's practical and maybe useful in the future.
Great, thanks. Question from David. Will the company be hiring an in-house geologist or continue to use an external consulting group?
So we'll eventually hire in-house geologists. We think probably for Nisk and probably for the new co will probably hire somebody for BC. It made sense at this time because of our relationship with Critical Elements that we're able to effectively commence this drill program and prove up the opportunity in a low risk way without having massive overheads. So we did so, and that's one of the benefits of having Critical as a partner. We hired a great consulting engineering firm that has deep ties in the community and understands the area, and certainly has advanced relationships that we could never hope to replicate. So yeah, we'll staff up as we go forward, as this becomes, as we move this down the pathway to PEA and PFA, which is where we'll end up ultimately selling Nisk. We'll definitely need to staff up, but we'll do so on the heels of a much different price of a share and much different capital structure.
Fair enough, thank you. Regarding the 3D geological model currently being used to generate targets for the exploration program, what percentage of your land package does it cover?
We focused that pretty much on Nisk Main, so that was, and I think there's the Nisk West somewhat as well. So I would say probably maybe only 20% of the land package, something in that order of magnitude.
Okay. Another question from David. Who is the closed nickel producer in the Nisk asset?
Probably Inco. Glencore has the Raglan mine, which is north of us in northern Quebec. But I think Inco is probably closer. Sudbury is probably closer.
Okay. Has any metallurgy work been done?
Yeah, there's been metallurgy work done early days back in 2006, and they had like 70% recoverable, something in that order of magnitude. So stuff that you would, obviously want to improve on going forward, but still encouraging. And metallurgy results have come a long way since then. There's been a lot of advances, and you only have to look at Talon Metals as an example just to see, where they've gone from where they started with their metallurgy to where they're at now. So there's a lot of really good work done in that area. So we're comfortable that, obviously that's stuff that will need to be done as we go forward, but there historic stuff that has been done that shows encouraging results. And we think technology is there to bring that forward and make it. We don't think metallurgy will be a problem for this project.
Great, thanks, Terry. Is the expectation to develop the Nisk asset or just to find a large, high-grade asset that a major company is going to develop?
Yeah, our mission in life is to prove up and de-risk as this project as much as possible and then sell it. We're not going to build the project. We're not built to be builders. We're built to be explorers and discoverers. So I would see us moving the thing through the PEA stage, through possibly pre-feasibility stage, and probably selling it somewhere in between those stages. And our objective would be let's find as much resource as we can cost effectively, and then let's show that the metallurgy works and start the the environmental processes and just start expediting the thing. But ultimately, we're not a mine builder. That's not our expertise, certainly not mine. And we wouldn't look to start and invent a whole team. We'd look to sell. And we've already had numerous inquiries, so I don't think there'll be any shortage of suitors for that.
Fair enough. There's actually a great follow-up question to that. How much drilling is going to be required to define an asset large enough to attract the attention of a major, and how long do you expect that to take?
So here we are. We're starting off. Hopefully we're going to confirm this existing 3 million tons, maybe move it towards 4. I think we could do a fairly major work program this summer. But now, this year we spent maybe $1 million. Maybe this summer we could spend several million. Like a major work program. So and then obviously, you're getting into what happens and so forth. But you might you're definitely going to have to, if you looked and say, hey, we did 14,000 meters to get to 3 million tons. So you got to get to at least triple that, right? So there's another 28,000 meters. Maybe we've done 3. So we're going to be drilling another 25,000 meters to get to 10 million tons. I mean, that's probably the reality of it. So, but the next program we do could be 15,000 meters. So it can get there fairly quickly. We think we can push through a lot of this over the next 12 months.
Right. David in the audience says, Power Nickel has a 3% royalty on the Copicuar copper moly deposit held by Teck Resources in Chile. When are they expected to begin commercial production?
So we touched on that a little bit in the presentation. Basically, when we sold the project, 5 years ago or so, we had thought by now it would probably be going in production, and the understanding was that they were going to use it to, keep QB1 running. And just to give you an order of magnitude, at lower prices than copper is right now, QB1 was producing like 700-800 million in sales, and our ore body would have been the ore body for that mine. So it would have produced, a royalty of, even though it's 3%, they have the right to buy back 1% for 3 million. So it's best to think of it as 2% plus 3 million. So 2% of 800 million would be 16 million a year. So that would be, our market cap is not even 16 million. So it would be an enormous plus. But obviously that didn't happen. So now we're looking at, okay, it's probably going to become it would have to become another mine in my mind. And so that's probably, 5 years plus out. So, but as these things become more certain, i.e., if Teck said, hey, we've done some drilling or do some drilling over the next couple of years, and now we've got 400 million tons, and we're going to build the mine, then all of a sudden that thing's worth a lot more money, right? So at that point, we probably get fair number from a royalty company and sell it. But right now, it's an asset that we'll just keep in the books and wait for it to come because we know it's coming.
Oh, fair enough. Thank you. When is Consolidation Gold and copper going to be spun out to shareholders?
So basically, in Q2, we'll have a shareholder meeting to approve the transaction, and then it will go to a court, through the plan of reorg, and we expect the timeline on that will be Q3. So I would expect this will be a Q3 transaction where our shareholders will get the actual paper and shares as a bonus.
I think you've gone over this next question, but Klaus in the audience wants to know if you have any drilling results.
We had partial drilling results, and it's one of those weird things. The assays are obviously, I think, globally a challenge for everyone, and so our assays are being done in Quebec and also Mexico. Same company doing both, and so we've got one package in, and the other package is in process, like in the next couple of days. So what we expect, we'll have this out early next week. We're thinking is probably more practical. And the guidance we've given folks is that from a rock type perspective, the black peridotite rock that we're searching for, that we modeled for, we found in all of our target holes in the same thickness or greater thickness than we have historically. So we're expecting, we've said we expect to get, positive assay results. And, that's what all I can say right now is that we maintain that feeling.
Awesome. Okay. So David wants to know, how big is Power Nickel's land package? And what percentage of that land package has there been no exploration done to?
You know what? That's that's funny. I think I'm not going to give you an answer on that because I honestly, I would say it's probably around 4,000 hectares, but I'm going to get back and give you a better number of that. I'll send it out to the shareholders. In terms of the actual percentage of it that's been the work that's been done on, I would say certainly no more than 15% has been explored. So there's a lot of land that's been unexplored, and that's one of the things we're looking forward to. And the nature of this project is that these pods historically around the world come in multiple pods. So right now we're working on pod 1, which is Nisk Main. Nisk West looks like it could be pod 2 because it's already had some initial drilling, showed some good nickel results, and obviously we need to get more active there. And then there are 2 wildcat targets, basically have had no drilling, but the geophysics look really good, look very identical to what we had. So that could be pods 3 and 4. So we're the thing that we liked a lot when we bought the project was the optionality. And I sort of went through that. We think you've got one pod, Nisk Main, which could become a mine in of itself, but the potential for multiple pods. And then there's the potential for multiple streams, i.e. it could be stacked systems, so you got multiple zones. And then, in the Holy Grail scenario, these pods are actually exist over a halo of a VMS. Again, I'm not promising a VMS because that would be, mega billions, and there's no guarantee in that. But the neat part is we're going to be able to test that and explore that without, we don't have to pay for it. It'll be very cheap to do that, and the potential could be enormous. So it's those are the bets you love to take in junior mining.
Oh, fair enough. Dennis wants to know, when shareholders will be able to know if Nisk is a mine. When will they know all the details that they can about it, especially in regards to it going up on your website?
Yeah, so 43-101s are really great instruments that way. So I think the next update on that will be a really seminal piece for us. We think that'll show growth in a lot of detail. And then as the stages in mine development are basically, you have your technical resource, okay, and then your next probable stage is preliminary economic assessment. So that would be, which is, for example, Talon Metals. They put out their PEA, maybe a year ago, 10 million tons, 2% nickel EQ, and now they're I think they went from 200 million to 500 million or 600 million on that news. So that would probably be the next big one for us. That would be the next step. And obviously, as you're making each of these steps, you're providing more data and more substance, which de-risks the mine, the metallurgy, etc. So those are the sort of tried and proven steps that miners take to de-risk mines for investors, and we would be taking the very same steps and doing it as timely as we could. But I mean, the first step will probably be the first 43-101, the technical report that will come out, we think, in early Q2. And then the next one will probably be the PEA, which will be, we think, in the next 12 months following that. Okay,
great. David wants to know, how did the Nisk nickel grades compare to your peers, such as Canada Nickel Corp in the Timmins area? Are your grades considered high? And really, what quartile are the nickel grades? Where do they reside?
Yeah, so we'd be in the top quartile, and probably the top, I would say the only other one that's sort of like us, right? Talon Metals has actually got a higher nickel grade than us, but relatively comparable nickel EQs. We've got more cobalt and copper and palladium than they do. So that gets us to a sort of a similar economic package. So Canada Nickel is a different animal. It's a bigger deposit, lower grade. I mean, it's a fine looking deposit. I like it. But it's going to take a lot of money to develop, and that's sort of the downside. And until the mindsets change in that, I think it eventually will get developed. And I like the project a lot, but it's maybe 0.25% nickel. We're almost 8 to 10 times that. So at nickel EQ. So but we're much smaller. So our types of deposits historically around the world are sort of 8 to 50 million tons, and that Canada Nickel might be, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 million tons. Maybe more. So it's a different animal.
Right. Okay. Dennis has a great question. How are you going to spend the next $1 million?
The next $1 million would be basically spent on prepping the next programs at Nisk and the Golden Ivan, and doing the spin out work for Golden Ivan, so we can actually get those shares in the hands of our shareholders and create that new entity. So that'll cost us a couple $100,000 to do that, but it'll be money well spent. And probably the drilling beyond that, we'll be spending the money on the drilling of Nisk Stage 2 and on Golden Ivan Stage 1.
Okay. What sort of depth are you drilling at? And what does that mean for companies like Power Nickel?
So most of the drilling has been done, sort of like 100 meters or so. We started in this round. I think our deepest hole was on a true depth was about 250, and we'll probably do some deeper holes going forward. But obviously, for now, that was it made sense with the limited dollars we had to spend. The big benefit to having a shallow resource like at 100 meters is it means that you can certainly probably get the thing going with an open pit mine, and that has enormous early payback potential opportunities for mine economics. So mine developers will really like that aspect of the project.
Okay. Ray in the audience wants to know if you could walk the audience through a timeline along with milestones from now until a sales-ready product is created.
I can give you some broader brush ones. I mean, basically, so the first milestone, next one up, major milestone, I would say, is our inaugural Power Nickel 43-101 report, which we'd expect in early Q1, okay? Early Q2. And then what we think, you always have to think positively towards these things, otherwise you'd never get to bed in the morning. So we assume that people will do the math and compare us against the other nickel projects that they could look at investing in and say, hey, these guys are way cheaper than these guys, and they look like they got the chutzpah to make it. So I'm going to make 10 times the money by investing in Power Nickel instead of 2 times the money by investing over here. So I'm going to buy Power Nickel. So there's going to be you have to think there's going to be revaluation of the Power Nickel stock. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to raise the capital you need to grow. So we have to assume that stock's going to go up. We're going to be able to raise the capital we need to grow. So if we raise the capital we need to grow, the next thing we would do is we need to get this from 3-4 million tons to 10 million tons. So that means we need to do more drilling. So probably in the order of 25,000-30,000 meters of drilling to probably get us there. So we would do that as quickly as we could, assuming we've got a pretty good feel for how this deposit lays out. We've got the right exploration teams on the program, so we can do that. And obviously, drilling in Quebec is very tried and proven thing. So this is a very easy place to sort of explore. So we would spend probably the next year drilling and doing that. At the same time, we will start to do metallurgy work. So we'll basically commence some metallurgical studies to prove that the ore that we're finding is processable in the ordinary scope of how these things would get processed. So that, basically we would hopefully be in a position within 12 months of our 43-101 being posted, of being able to do a preliminary economic assessment, okay? Which would be, generally say, hey, it's not, feasibility study, but it's, hey, this thing looks like it's got real merit and could deliver a very good economic return. And obviously now you have to maybe do more infill drilling and you have to do more detail engineering, and that gets you into the pre-feasibility study. Okay, so that would probably take a pre-feasibility after a PEA probably is 18 months, something like that. Okay, and then once you get there, you're probably another 18 months to final feasibility. 12, maybe 12, something like that. So and then at final feasibility, you're somewhere, like I would say probably our objective is we would probably sell this business between PEA and PFA. That's typically when explorer companies like Power Nickel do that, because developers have their own slant on how they want to build things, their own processes and protocols, and so they would get into it. So I would never see us actually delivering a finished nickel product, and I don't think any junior really gets there. That's very, very rare because different skill sets are required, and everyone gets paid to do what they do well. So the Techs and Comincos and Incos and Vales and Glencores of the world, they're great at identifying economic projects and then putting them into mines and then operating them efficiently and selling it efficiently, and so that's what they do well, and that's what would happen. So I don't know if that that's not a complete timeline, but that's probably the timeline is as far as their interest as shareholders would be concerned is probably you get this thing to pre-feasibility study and you're getting 30% to 40% IRRs, which we think are highly likely, then this thing's going to be bona fide and acquired by some nickel battery metal developer, whether it be an actual industry guy like an Inco or Vale or Glencore or you're going to see investments in from the actual Volkswagens and Teslas, and that's the real difference maker in this space relative to, say, the gold and copper space, is that this nickel sulfate stuff is so rare that industry guys are going to move much quicker on this than ever before, and that's what's going to allow us. People are saying, well, how's your stock going to go up so rapidly? Why is it going to change? People look and say, you could have bought it for 17 cents. Why would I pay 50? Well, you're going to pay 50 because the industry guy is going to pay 50 or more. And that's what's going to really, I think, be the difference maker in the battery metals complex is you got industry that's going to drive pricing. And that's what's going to make it possible to get, I think, attractive returns for our shareholders.
Well, fair enough. Listen, Terry, there are a couple more questions left, but we are really running short on time at this point. So I'd like to thank you, of course, for coming on today, as well as for everyone that asked questions. It's been a great Q&A session, I believe. I want to make sure that if you didn't get a chance to get your question answered, or if you think of one after the summit, you can find today's presentation in the Handouts tab on the right-hand side of your screen, and it includes contact information you can see currently on your screen. You can reach out directly to the team at Power Nickel that way and follow up on the questions you've asked. You can, of course, also find more information on Power Nickel's website, powernickel.com. But with that, Terry, I'm going to hand things back to you for some closing remarks before we truly wrap up for the day.
Well, listen, wanted to thank you for the great questions and some stuff I got to get back on there for some of you. It's good to give the update. I think it's a tremendous time to keep a watch on us. Check out the assays; they'll be out shortly. I think you'll be very encouraged with what you'll see. And then, check out our comparable companies. I think you'll find that, we're in really good shape, and it could be an exciting time to be a Power Nickel shareholder. And we look forward to bringing the football, into the end zone for you, and to talking to you next time. Until then, ciao for now.